Goldstein. It's my honor, really, to be the president of the synagogue on this auspicious day. I want to thank everybody for coming, and I want to welcome some special guests in our midst who have joined us. Representative David Price. I don't see them, but I think City Councilwoman Javiera Caballero is here, as well as State Representative Marcia Mori. We have a wonderful program for you today. We're going to hear from Representative Price. We're going to do some recognitions and thank yous and gifts to many, but not all, of the people who helped to make this beautiful project possible. And we're going to do some singing, of course, both some entertainment as well as some singing together. I want to start off by thanking Jenna Highland, who started working at Bethel 3 weeks ago and jumped right into making this program possible. And I want to also thank Andrea Ginsberg, who I try not to enlist in too many projects, but said yes immediately when I asked her to plan this program, and she just did a beautiful job. So maybe 6 months ago, Trudy Abel, who works in the Duke University Library System, shared with us the 1921 report of the Bethel Building Committee, when they submitted a report almost 100 years ago on the construction and completion of the first Bethel Synagogue at the corners of Holloway and Queen Street. The building had a seating capacity in the main area of 350 people, and the total cost of construction was $40,000. They wrote proudly, "Durham may lay claim to possessing the finest synagogue in the South. Such a claim was made possible only through the ceaseless and untiring efforts of the building committee and the fraternal cooperation and worthy contributions of those in the city and throughout the country. In planning the new synagogue, we were bent on a house of worship, dignified and in tone with its importance, commodious sufficiently to care for the future. Though our original plans were enlarged as the campaign for funds progressed, yet our highest hopes have in every respect been equaled." In 1957, we moved to this current space, and you can read in Eli Evans' marvelous book, The Provincials, how his father, as president of the synagogue, established a building fund, and along with 5 other leaders of the congregation, personally endorsed the note that North Carolina Mutual provided to secure the funds to build this building. Several years ago, a new team here, who you'll meet, came together to look at strategic planning for Bethel. One of the top needs they identified was the need to expand our current space to accommodate changes in our community. First and foremost, they noted that the congregation had grown and that we often had main core functions in which we were standing room only or running out of seats. We also had a growing staff and didn't have a collective place where they could work together. And our children were traveling back and forth across a busy parking lot to go to activities. And finally, our building was not accessible for many of our regular members and visitors. We also had some basic systems upgrades and repair that are natural over time. We began an assessment of congregational capacity and possible designs, and at our best estimate concluded maybe we could stretch to raise $3 to $4 million to accommodate a basic renovation. With that, we began a capital campaign and early design work. Many people weighed in to be clear that while we should dream big and make sure to build for the future, we needed to retain what could only be described as the Hamish feel of this synagogue, the humble design, and not build beyond our means. As everyone knows, this congregation and many supporters beyond it exceeded our wildest expectations and ultimately raised over $6 million, allowing us to build a synagogue that matched our very real needs. In 1921, the building committee reported, "The sum of $40,000 may appear large in comparison to our small Jewish community, but it must be borne in mind that we build for the future." They said, "The synagogue is not just a house of worship, it's a community center, and it sends a message to the entire community what the Jewish community represents, saying, the synagogue should represent nothing less than the maximum effort, energy, and sacrifice of the community." It's quite moving to read this 1921 report and see how much of what they said then resonates 100 years later. The financial generosity of our congregation has been astounding, but even more impressive is the number of volunteers who gave their time and expertise to this project. You're going to hear about just some of them, but I want to express personally my thanks to every touch and small gift individuals made to make this synagogue special. The gates were polished by a member. The computer programming behind the memorial board was done by students. The analytics on the financing took substantial time. People brought in energy to move all the old plants and bring in new plants. And of course, we've done some amazing woodworking using the old wood from the synagogue and incorporating it into new pieces around the congregation. It's a testimony to what a special community have that so many people gave their time and passion to the little details of this synagogue. Finally, I want to thank some very special people who led the effort around this project and without whom none of this would be possible. I want to start with the staff. Zach Marshall, who joined us just a few months ago, came just in time to help us move in and maintain our new space and has really helped to keep it beautiful immediately. Rachel Green, throughout the project, did countless work marketing and supporting the capital campaign. No matter what we asked her to do, she always said yes and made each request better than we had suggested. Sherry Hoffman keeps us all together all the time. She was the warm face greeting everyone while we lived in the Friedman Center during construction. She made it feel seamless, and I don't think I ever heard Sherry complain. She's so patient with all of us. And then we have some thank yous. Nathan Bierman, who I'm going to thank at the end, made mezuzahs for some of the contributors to this project using wood from the pews that we removed, which I think is just amazing. I want to start by thanking the rabbi whose vision and leadership made this entire project possible. He really raised our sights of what it was possible for us to accomplish. He gave endless attention to the details of how to make this space work for the very mundane daily needs we have, as well as the holy needs we have. And his knowledge of the members of our congregation helped to engage everyone personally in giving to this project and enabled us to raise significantly more funds than I think we ever expected. I want to thank Alan Friedman, who joined us in June last year. I don't think he had any idea what he was getting into, even though we warned him. He came right in the middle of construction. He actually never was with us when we were in the old building, so he was doing it blind, and jumped in enthusiastically to oversee just an endless, amazing number of details. He was always calm, or when things were maybe not so calm, he took a deep breath and said, "It's going to be fine. Here's what we're going to do," and was at the forefront of keeping the interests of the synagogue in mind always. So we have a mezuzah for Alan. Drew Langsam was part of our construction leadership team, the BEAM team, whose knowledge of construction was essential. I can't tell you how many times over the last year and a half we would start a conversation, I would say, I'm just really glad you're here and you know what you're talking about. We are so lucky that Drew gave so much time and expertise to this project. He always kept in mind making sure the building served Bethel well and that he put Bethel's interests and protected them first. He knew when to push and when to tell the construction folks, fine, that we'll take that answer. He knows about things like drainage and wall shoring and sprinklers that the rest of us don't understand at all. But we could really trust that if Drew said this was the way to go, it was the way to go. And although he takes everything seriously and is pretty tough, he is a total joy to be around and always a smile on his face. And we couldn't have done this without you. Gary Zarkin, where's Gary? There he is. So Gary was co-chair of our capital campaign. I don't even know how we enlisted him because I think he also worked on the JCC and was willing to do this again. He brought a lot of experience and confidence to the project throughout, but always asked the tough questions. Are we sure we're doing the right thing? Should we take this complaint seriously? Can we really pull this off? Made sure we were handling each piece as well as possible, but also gave an enormous amount of time to meeting with people, asking for money, making sure that we got what we needed for the very best project possible. So thank you, Gary. Sandy Berman was our other Beam co-chair. And Sandy made this an incredible labor of love. I think it really was basically a full-time job. I know that Sandy loves musicals, and to me, she is the Bernadette Peters of this project. She is tough as nails and was willing to be the bad guy anytime we needed it. But all that said, she got to know each person on this project personally, knew their story and what motivated them. She was always fabulous fun and stylish and committed to taking the stewardship of the quality and who Bethel is a community very seriously. And I think this whole project could not have happened without Sandy's attention to the whole thing. And another delight of this is I didn't know Sandy very well before we started, and we've become great friends, and I just really treasure everything you've done. I'm going to conclude with Nathan Bierman, who co-chaired and led the capital campaign, and since he made the mezuzah, we got him a special gift. It's hard to even describe the work that Nathan put into this project. He was the glue and the captain of the whole thing. I think he served on every single committee, including the strategic planning committee that first had the idea for doing this work. He kept going every time we raised a doubt or a question about whether it was a good idea or possible. He never got upset. He was always positive and just said, well, let's have breakfast. Let's sit down. Let's think about this again, and thought of another solution for how to move it forward. His vision and his relentless attention to traveling far and wide, meeting with anybody who wanted to talk, to resolve their concerns or enlist them in giving to the project, just made it possible. He took everything in stride, kept going, and it was really Nathan who said, I think we're going to raise more than we originally planned. I think we should raise the goal and expand the project a little bit. And just totally phenomenal, and none of this would have been possible without Nathan's leadership. So since you made the mezuzot, we had Steve Herman make you a tzedakah box out of the pews. So I'm going to conclude with words from a favorite Jewish camp song of mine. For our hands are strong and our hearts are young, and the dreamers keep a dreamin' ages on. We have always planned when we finish this project to do a phase 2 in which we put the playground back in the backyard, which you may notice is missing. We have, because of the discipline of this project, we have some extra funds that we will put towards that effort, and we've also started conversations with the preschool and young families about raising money for the playground. But you will see in the lobby a rendering of the possibilities of what we could do in our backyard and how great it could be. And if people are willing to give generously and help us, we will be able to move a little faster and deliver that playground earlier so that we can deliver on the dreams for the next generation. So I hope you'll take a look at that. And I just want to thank you all again for all you've given to this effort, and hope we will enjoy it for decades to come.